Welcome subscribers to a review of Season 5 Battle 10 between the Forces of Khorne, the Sons of Medusa, Iron Hands and an assortment of squats. Anyway, you've seen the battle last week, let's have a closer look at the table. This is just as we're about to start the battle, so the deployment phase. Everything's out on the table really for both sides. So I'll just do a quick run around of the table at this stage. So up near the train station up here, we've got the squat forces. So they're all just assembled there, ready to go. We've got some assortment of squat vehicles there. And over here, likewise, we've got some Imperial Knights now. They're just scattered across the board at this stage. One here and the other four over that side. We've got a group of Iron Hands here, which there's some Space Marines inside that Land Raider there. Moving over this side, we've got a lot of Sons of Medusa. No tanks as such for those guys, but they've got enough firepower with the Allied Imperial Knights. So that's a real quick rundown of that side of the board. Now moving over here, we've got the Forces of Khorne. Now if you remember from last battle, we had the forces above ground, which were mainly cultists. You know, that's all flooded into the subterranean levels, and that's why the battle is going on underground here. So here we've got some Land Raiders. We've got a modified train system here, which is really operating as cover for the units as they move across the board. So we've got Land Raiders, we've got just an assortment of different Forces of Khorne here. We've got the Brass Scorpion there, some Bikers, Rhinos. That's pretty much a layout of the Khorne forces. Now also I should say that there are some in reserve up here. This is the reserves. So we've got Bloodthirsters. All these guys are really occupants of Rhinos or Land Raiders. That's the Space Marines at the front there, not the Bloodthirsters. So we've got quite a few, 5 Bloodthirsters in all. I've got a Demon Prince as well. And there's a unit of Iron Hands up the back there, which are inside that Land Raider over there. So as the battle progresses, these guys will come back onto the table, and yeah, that'll be it. So that's the deployment phase. We'll see what happens in turn 1. Hey subscribers, here we are on the first half of turn 1. We've had Chaos set things off and not a lot of casualties at this stage because we've got a big board that we're moving across, and let's have a look. So looking at the board, really Chaos have gone first and they've only just inched their way across the board. It's kind of a little bit depressing because it's taken most of the day just to do this, and really just moving them up along the board here. We've got this train section in the middle here, which is going to operate as some cover. We've got the Brass Scorpion as well, which, like Scorpions do, scuttle around, is actually mounted on top of the engine there, ready to take a position. It's probably exposing itself a little bit, but a lot of things are probably out of range at this stage. So it's probably going to be safe for a little bit, but look, as the enemy advance, it'll be able to fire some of those nasty weapons that those things have got. So over this side, really, we haven't had much else happen. Everyone's been advancing. The Rhinos on this side kind of got congested because of this train section here, and they've kind of moved up along here, which is probably not going to work out so well because there's just no path through for a Rhino or a vehicle, but I imagine they'll disgorge their contents somewhere around here and maybe just have whole heap of berserkers forge, you know, just run over that area there and just get stuck into the enemy. But look, I reckon they'll have to do that. Likewise, this tank back here really couldn't go anywhere, so I don't know what that's going to do. It's probably going to have to double back and go around this way. It's kind of a awkward bit of terrain, this train, it's proving to be, but look, there's virtually no casualties yet. We've had 3 casualties where these land raiders here fired and could just pick out a couple of Space Marines there. Over this side, I guess we've got the bikers, which are leading the way, charging their way in as followers of Khorne do. They're probably going to get exposed pretty quick, but we'll wait and see. Don't forget, over the side here, we have got a lot to come on the board. Lots of deep striking, especially on the Khorne side. Lots of bloodthirsters, so might look like these guys are going to get ripped to shreds by all that fire over here. But once those bloodthirsters touch down, they should make some of these Space Marines have a bad day. Anyway, that's the board. End of first half of turn 1. We'll see what happens next. Hey subscribers, here we are on the second half of turn 1, and let's have a look at the board and see what's happened. So this turn took me ages. It took me pretty much 3/4 of a day just to move these across the board. So up here we've had the squats just reposition themselves. They're obviously trying to take a position just there behind that trailer there. But obviously the Chaos Forces are going to try and take that as well, so we'll see how that pans out. We've had the Imperial Knight, quite a few Imperial Knights take pot shots at the Chaos Bikers there, and there's quite not too many left there, still a few. Anyway, so the rest of these guys basically reposition themselves as they move across the board, trying to take advantage of mobile cover, such as a Land Raider there. We also had the Dreadnoughts fire some rockets into the bikers as well, a couple of casualties there, and the Space Marines are really trying to use the Imperial Knights as cover as they walk across the board. So we had one Land Raider get shot and busted up there and disgorge its contents on the board, which were summarily destroyed themselves. So really that unit's been halved up as such. And so really, even though there's a lot of effort to do that, move that across the board with the stop motion, not a lot of casualties. In fact, that's the casualties just there of what's happened. Well, we also did have the drill go underground, which was just here. So it's mined underground and it will no doubt resurface somewhere else on the board in a future turn. We'll wait and see where that pops up later on. Anyway, there we have it, end of turn 1. A lot of models on the board, and we've still got a heap deep strike ready to come out. We'll wait and see what happens next. Hey subscribers, here we are on the first half of turn 2, and it's been a while since I've been up here doing these battles. I've been editing quite a bit, and I've noticed that I've been trying to do these fortnightly, but they're really going to probably have to be done every 3 weeks, because the size and scale of the battle, as well as the editing that I'm doing, is just getting a little bit too much. Not too much that I can't do it, it's just adding more time in processing it, so it might have to be every 3 weeks. Anyway, let's see how we go in the first half of turn 2. Right, okay, so we've had 2 deep striking bloodthirsters over the back there, taking a strategic position behind the train station there. but there's a lot of heavy ordnance there which can cause those difficulty. They're probably more of a distraction more than anything, because there's still another 3 bloodthirsters to come from Deep Strike when the time comes. We had the bikers, whatever remains of those, and the groups of berserkers just move up behind this ridge here, try and get a bit of cover behind those ridges. We had one Imperial Knight go down. We had the combined fire of Land Raider with las cannons, las cannon fire there. We had the Brass Scorpion and the Skull on Wheels, can't remember his name, Lord of Skulls. Anyway, all of that combined fire took out one of those guys. There's still 4 to go, but still that took that out. So we had a Rhino advance with a unit of beastmen hiding behind it, using it as mobile cover. We had this Dreadnought, Hellbrute / Dreadnought, move up together with this tank here, because they really can't do a lot on this side of the board. This train is proving to be a huge bit of cover here, and really they had no place there. So they're going to try and sneak around the back and join this mess moving around that side. We had the large... Geez, I can't even remember the names. Anyway, this guy here took out a unit of squats that was hiding just there. I'm going to have a list, something written down in front of me. I haven't got a very good memory. Anyway, Terminators moved from there to there, trying to get in and amongst this section here, use that as cover and try and assault from this direction here. These 2 rhinos here just basically raced up and took strategic positions behind these carriages here, so they can disgorge their berserker contents, which is all sitting up here ready to disgorge. And we had a unit of berserkers just cut up the side here, so I suppose those squats are in for a bit of trouble coming from all this, but there's still a lot of Space Marines and Imperial Knights and things to try and dent this. I'll try and remember the name of this guy. It starts with a K, a demon engine of some kind. But anyway, can't pronounce it, can't remember how to say it. Anyway, that's how we have it at the end of turn, the first half of turn 2. So we'll see how the Space Marines respond, and I guess the Imperial Knights are going to let go with their heavy ordnance, and also there's a fair few tanks there that are ready to unload as well. Anyway, we'll see what happens next. Hey subscribers, here we are at the end of the second half of turn 2, and the Space Marines are starting to advance across the board. Let's have a look and see what's happened. So over this side of the board we had a burrowing mining unit which came in behind enemy lines and fired a melter weapon. You can see just there at the Brass Scorpion. Obviously hasn't killed it, and this guy is going to be in for a lot of strife with a lot of heavy weaponry etc. around him. But he's probably more of a distraction unit to take the firepower away from the advancing Imperial Knights. We had, I'll start here, we've got a unit of Space Marines that tried to fire and take out the Land Raider. Didn't die. We had an Imperial Knight there take out a, can't remember what it was, las cannon tank unit just there. These are the units that were taken out this turn. We had this knight here advance, just tread all over that terrain there and come up and take out a unit of Khorne berserkers. A lot of these units just advanced across the board, couldn't really fire and see a line of sight within for a shot within range. Over here we had There was a rhino just there, which is now in the casualty section over here. That was taken out, and the berserkers that were inside, there's only 5 of them remaining. The rest of these units, like I said, are just advanced across the board. We had some squat berserkers that were standing on those steps, just move up and stand next to the Iron Father, I think it's called. Can't remember. Anyway, and we had these squats over here take out a Terminator, just firing using this unit as cover, this bit of terrain as cover. I don't know if that's going to be strong enough to stop it against some of this firepower coming its way. Anyway, we'll see how those squats hold out. Over this side we had the combined firepower of the Centurions and some squats, and also this Imperial Knight fired in and took out one of the Bloodthirsters. There is one of them that remains. So really it's just trying to take the idea of these Bloodthirsters is to take the focus off the rest of the advancing army over here. So hopefully it's good enough distraction from a Khorne perspective. But anyway, so we've seen a lot of casualties on the Chaos side. That's for this turn. There's still got an awful lot of units left on the board, and we've still got some deep striking units up here. So next turn we'll see a few appear on the board. I've got also, there's some Iron Hands which are still inside the Land Raider just over there. So that's where we sit at the end of turn 2. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of casualties in turn 3. But it'll make my life easier because it takes forever to move these around the board. Anyway, that's the end of turn 2. Let's see what happens next. Okay, here we are at the end of the first half of turn 3, and Khorne have made their advancement across the board. Let's move around and see what has happened. So over this side we have seen the Bloodthirster change position, come up and take out a unit of squats that was hiding there. They didn't last long, they were stomped. We had some deep striking, another Bloodthirster and a Demon Prince behind enemy lines, just to create more of a problem for that Imperial Knight there and the Centurions. Over this side we had the Land Raider try and take a shot at this Imperial Knight here, survive that. We also had this Bloodthirster and Khan the Betrayer and a group of crazed berserkers charge this knight here, and a few of the berserkers got smashed in that process. We had the Brass Scorpion shoot and take out a tank, I believe. Yeah, a couple of tanks over here. There's only one that was taken out in that shot. These are the casualties here. Forget about those guys just there. These are the casualties for the turn here. So that's what's happened there. We had the bikers that were in the way here. They just drove across and got out of the way. The Brass Scorpion had to get out of the way. But they took a shot at another tank that was sitting there, which is now destroyed by a bunch of berserkers that just surged out of those rhinos there and just charged over the top of that trailer there and took out the other tank there. We had Predator here come round and just take a position here ready to fire next turn. Also the Dreadnought / Hellbrute moved up into a position. Really hasn't had a lot to do in this battle yet, but it's only turn 3. We did have the squat drill rig. I can't remember what it's called. It was sitting there, but obviously got smashed to bits like by that. So here's in the casualty section over here. I'd missed over here where we had a deep striking unit fall down here and try and took out a few of the Space Marines there. Mainly the Sons of Medusa. All the Space Marines are pretty well intact at this stage, and it's their turn next, so it looks like Khorne's sort of taking over here, but it could go any way. We also had that Imperial Knight up there take a shot in the back, as you do if you're Khorne. You don't care. I suppose you like to fight face on, don't you? But he chose to fire and take out that Imperial Knight there, which still is operational. We had the Terminators and a couple of groups of Berserkers there and there just move up into position. They're going to try and forge over this position here. It's a pretty awkward sort of position. We do have the squats hiding behind that. I can't remember what the name for it. It's where the Space Marines were generated. I can't think of a name for it now. Anyway, bit of terrain, that's what it is. So that's all the units that have moved on the Chaos turn 3. We have the Sons of Medusa, Iron Hands and the remaining squats to go next. So we'll see what happens at the end of turn 3. Okay, here we are at the end of turn 3, and let's have a look at the table, see what's happened. We've had the Space Marines turn, and we've had this Imperial Knight and some heavy squat firepower try and have a crack at that demon engine there, which will take a little bit more work before that goes down. We had the Centurions over here come and take out the Bloodthirster, which was there. There's going to be some strife here in a minute as that Bloodthirster and the Demon Prince come in and cause some mayhem. We had 2 Dreadnoughts and a small unit of Space Marines turn around and try and take out the deep striking Chaos units, and took out a few. There's still 6 remaining just there. Over here we had the Iron Father, I think it's called. Yeah, that's right. He charged in with some squat Berserkers and took out a lot of that Khorne Berserker group, which it's looking pretty evenly balanced. We had this unit of Space Marines turn around and try and take out some of those Berserkers there as well. The rest of these Space Marines kept advancing. Same with these Centurions here. They're working their way across the board. Over this side we had 2 Imperial Knights going to hand to hand with Khan the Betrayer, who's, well, these are all the casualties for the turn, so there's quite a few, and he's up there somewhere. There he is, the front car, and there we go. So the Imperial Knights won that, and then are turning around ready to face the next thing, which they're going to be in some strife because there's a Brass Scorpion there, and yep, there's lots of hurt hanging around here. So and we also had this Imperial Knight just basically advance across the board and take up a position here. Not really concerned about the Berserkers down there. They're not going to cause too much. So not much happened here. We had this unit of Space Marines take out one biker over there. I thought that biker unit would be destroyed by now, but it's still hanging around. So overall, there's a lot of Chaos casualties. That's pretty much all the casualties. Oh, those 2 Bloodthirsters are going to be deep striking next turn, but all these other units are casualties for the turn. So looks like the board's thinning out. There we go. So turn 4 up next. Let's see what happens. The battle continues. This is the first half of turn 4, and Khorne have moved across the board. Let's have a look. We've got a lot of super heavies over this side, and most of the inventory's been dried up. There's still something in that tank. There's a group of berserkers and a character just there, which are sitting inside that Land Raider, but we'll deal with that in a minute. Let's see what's happened. We had some deep striking units. We had a Bloodthirster pop up just there, and another one just pop up over here. The Space Marines looked like they had it all under control there for a bit. Now it's looking, well, who knows what's going to happen. Anyway, we had an Imperial Knight that was sitting there and had the fire from the Land Raider, Lord of Skulls, Brass Scorpion, all fire at it, and it's now casualty. So there we go. We had the Dreadnought, another tank, just roll up from behind the train here and just takes a position here. There was a las cannon fire at that Imperial Knight there, but it's still holding ground. Moving across the board, we had the Bikers and what's remaining of that Berserker squad turn the corner and take out almost the entire, well, there's 4 guys left for that Space Marine squad. We had this unit of Beastmen essentially target the Land Raider, come in and try and take it out. Didn't take it out. We also had the Berserkers that were there charge in and assist their comrades there and take out the squat unit, and there's only the Iron Father just sitting there in combat. We had over this side, we had the Terminators just pass through that gap there and sit here and fire in and take out a good chunk out of that squad just there. Berserkers came up over the back there and just are staying in cover there, ready to charge in to that unit of squats just there. We also had some contents of those rhinos just there, just come up and take a position on top of that trailer just there. They're Khorne Berserkers. Likewise, this giant demon engine here came out here and took out the squat tank, which is just sitting up there on the casualty list up there. And what else do we have? We had there was the Bloodthirster as well as the Demon Prince, which were sitting just here, and they charged around the corner and engaged the Imperial Knight that was there. Bloodthirster was taken out, but the Demon Prince survived, so that's where that sits. Over here we had a small unit of Space Marines. There was only 3 that were sitting there. They got charged by this deep striking unit here, and they got taken out. So Khorne have got a pretty good position over this side of the board. There's still two Dreadnoughts there, and there's some Centurions up here. But the big concern, I would say, would be this demon engine here, which you could just sit there behind some cover there and just keep popping people off all day. So the Space Marines are going to have to find a way to take that out. But over this side, they're going to have to find a way to take out Brass Scorpion and the Lord of Skulls as well, because they can do an awful lot of damage. We do have 2 Imperial Knights left, plus some, Centurions. There's a lot of las cannons and plasma guns in all these Space Marines. So, and don't forget that there's a Land Raider there, which has got a unit inside it that's there. So, I think the priority for the Space Marines is going to have to start carving up some of the super heavy units, possibly a Bloodthirster or something like that, to try and claw things back. But that's the end of the first half of turn 4. We'll see what the Space Marines can do in response. Okay, here we are at the end of turn 4, so only 2 turns to go, and let's have a look at the table. We've had the Space Marines have their turn, and they've carved a lot of the Khorne forces away. Well, I suppose there's a few Space Marine casualties hiding in there. There's 3. Yeah, look, that's only 3 Space Marines, so not too bad. So over this side, we'll start over this side here. We've had the Centurions charge in and take out the Demon Prince that was there. We had the squat forces and this unit of Space Marines have their combined firepower on the Terminators there. Took out 3, I think. Yeah, three Terminators. These guys had a kind of a choice whether to try and take out those advancing Khorne Berserkers, but most of them are behind cover there. Pretty solid cover, so I thought it would be better to try and take out those. But I reckon these guys are going to get assaulted pretty shortly by those Berserkers. I'll wait and see. Over here, this melee just continued, and one Khorne Berserker was the casualty there. We had the Land Raider over here turn around with the support of the Dreadnoughts there and try and take out the Bloodthirster here. Wounded but not taken out. Up here, the Sons of Medusa HQ unit and this supporting unit of Space Marines turned around and fired into this Chaos Deep Striking unit and took all but 2 out. Over here, these guys came from down in here because they wanted to try and free up this Tech Marine to try and fire into that combat there, because it's Chaos's turn next, and I'm guessing that that guy's going to die, which will then theoretically open that up for some firing in the following turn. But that's the theory from the Space Marine's point of view. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. Likewise, over here, the Land Raider disgorged its Space Marine contents and fired and took out this unit's bodyguards, only leaving him left. But he's crazy. He's got an axe, so he's not going to take a step back. So he's going to try and carve up as many of those as he can before he falls over. So I'll wait and see what happens there. Okay, moving up here, we had this unit of Centurions plodding their way across the battlefield. Haven't done anything yet, and it's turn 4. Wow, well, we've got turn 5 and 6 to come, so they should hopefully try and get in and tear some armour up this way. But they're just sitting there waiting. We had this unit of Space Marines fire and hurt the Brass Scorpion, which was there, now there. And then we had the Imperial Knight jump down off there, off where those Centurions are, come down and carve up the Brass Scorpion. So the Brass Scorpion's finally gone. This unit of Space Marines, which was actually 2 units combined, just moved up the board and took a position behind this Imperial Knight, which this one here charged the Land Raider, and which is now there, and that's what was inside the Land Raider. Those guys there, so they're not going to really do a lot, I wouldn't think, next turn, but they might provide a distraction, so we'll see how that goes. And I think that's all there is for the Space Marines at this stage. A lot less units on the table, so they're getting quicker turns, but we've got Khorne in their turn next. We've got a lot of heavy weapons up this side. We've got the Lord of Skulls. We've got the Hellbrute / Dreadnought there. We've got a Bloodthirster, so they can really cause a lot of damage to these units here. We've only got 2 Imperial Knights left, so you know, it could be fairly evenly weighted. These rhinos over this side are just basically staying there. There's no way they could actually navigate and get past this train unit, and there's not going to really impact the battle a lot, so there's no point in them taking all the way around here to come in here. To do what? I don't know. Anyway, so they're just staying there at this stage. So that's what we have at the end of turn 4. We've got 2 turns to go. We'll see how it pans out. Okay, we are at the end of the first half of turn 5. This battle's been going for about 2 weeks now. Just been doing it in the evenings when I can, but it's been dragging on for not dragging on, but just going on for some time. But anyway, let's have a look and see what's happening. We have had the Chaos forces have their turn. We'll start maybe over this side of the board. We had the Bloodthirster and 2 remaining assault units there charge a Dreadnought, which was there. Now it's a casualty. Over here we had the Berserkers that were standing on that trailer up there come down, and they really just wanted to clean up those squats but couldn't quite make it. Likewise, that other group of Berserkers came from round behind that object there and came out and engaged them in combat, so they're looking like they're in trouble at the moment. Anyway, over this side we had this champion here charge in and take out 3 of the Iron Hands, and he's wielding that axe, throwing it around the place, causing some mayhem, but surely he can't last with all this around him. Anyway, we also had the Iron Father was sitting there. He took out a Khorne Berserker before having the Terminators charge in and take care of him. We had the Demon Engine up the back there, just fire and take out a Land Raider that was there. Now a casualty up there. Moving over this side of the board, there was one solitary Space Marine in combat with all that. He didn't last long at all, he was taken out. So moving over this side of the board, we had a Imperial Knight that's there, that was standing there, got charged by the Lord of Skulls and a group of a Khorne champion there. So that didn't last long at all after getting hacked by that cleaver there. Nice. Anyway, over this side we had a Dreadnought, a Hellbrute I should say, which is up here as a casualty. We had him charge in with the Bloodthirster, and the Hellbrute was taken out, but that combat continues between the Bloodthirster and the Imperial Knight. Likewise, the Imperial Knight took a las cannon hit as well, so he's on his last legs. A lot of units on their last legs at this stage, but we'll see how it goes. This over here, this Lord of Skulls, looks like it could do a lot of damage, but it's a Space Marine's turn next, and looking at this unit here, like there's swags of las cannons, plasma weapons all over the place, so that Lord of Skulls, even though they're tough as nails, I don't know, concentrated las cannon fire and plasma weapons could be in trouble. We'll wait and see. Second half of turn 5 coming up. Hey subscribers, here we are at the end of turn 5, second half of turn 5, and the Space Marines have taken control of the battle at this stage. So it's looking pretty grim for Khorne. We'll just have a quick look at the table and see how it's all panning out. So, over this side, we'll start over this side of the board. We had the Squats and the Berserkers, or this unit of Berserkers here, just go toe to toe, and basically they're tying that battle that's still underway, but it's going to be Khorne's turns next, and no doubt those guys are going to charge in and just toast up those last remaining Squats. Over this side we had the Centurions charge in and take out, well, there was actually 2 Berserkers there alongside the Bloodthirster, and they got taken out. There was one Space Marine just there, he got taken out as well. That combat is continuing. Over this side, probably the shot of the game, Dreadnought missile fired, took out the Demon Engine, which is now up in casualties up there. So that was a turning point, one of the turning points in the battle, and that guy got toasted. So that was a good shot from the Space Marine side. We had also combined fire from these Space Marine units here, and they fired and took out 2 berserkers there, leaving 4 terminators sitting there in their turn next. There was a Chaos Lord with an axe, big giant axe, that was going toe to toe with these Iron Hands. He took out a few, but then the rest of the Space Marines charged in, and finally he succumbed to the numbers. So those guys are ready to take on someone next turn. Up this side, these Space Marines here and the Tech Marine down here fired into, there was a group just there of Berserkers and Chaos Bikers. So these guys softened them up with a bit of firepower, and then the Centurions charged down from up on the hill there and just cleaned them up. So Space Marines are controlling all this section here. These 2 units with las cannons, plasma weapons, lots of heavy weapons, fired and just took out the Lord of Skulls there. So that was a big move there. So at that stage of the game, the Space Marines are pretty well taking control of everything. But Bloodthirster took out Imperial Knight. So it went, look, you know, he probably shouldn't have survived, but he managed to take it out, and now it's Khorne's turn next. So really, between, you know, the Bloodthirster and, you know, these guys here, could probably do a bit of damage with these guys, don't know. And there's also, you know, we've got a tank over this side. So, look, I'd still say it's Space Marines at this stage. There's still a lot of Space Marines on the table. But we've got turn 6 to come. I think there's just turn 6. I'll have to check. But look, we haven't really got a lot left over. I imagine this Bloodthirster here is going to go down this turn. But we'll wait and see. But we'll see what happens. Alright, well, we've got turn 6 coming up next. Stay tuned. We'll see how it pans out. Right, here we are. We've got the first half of turn 6 completed, and the Khorne forces have really not performed as well as they should have. Anyway, let's have a look at the board. So, over this side we've had a las cannon fire there, take out 1 Centurion from that group just there. We've had the Bloodthirster, and there was a couple of Chaos. There was a Chaos Lord and 1 other standard bearer just was with him. They charged into this group of Marines and really carved them up. There's half of them pretty much were taken out, and those guys are finding it difficult to affect the Bloodthirster, who's still causing some problems. Moving around the board, there's a lot of Marines still there. They have really have held their ground, as they always do, I guess. Over this side, there was 1 HQ unit for the Marines that was a casualty of that combat. I think that's it there. There we go. Yep, he was in this combat over here, and was taken out by the other Bloodthirster. So that battle still continues into turn 6, but that Bloodthirster is going to look like it's in some trouble soon, with 3 Centurions still active and a Dreadnought looming in the background with some pretty nasty close combat weapons there. So see how that one pans out. Up this side we've had a group of squats that were holding out valiantly there. They got taken out by the Khorne Berserkers, and they now control the train station. Over here, the Dreadnought, the Terminators charged in and took out a squad of Space Marines. So overall, there's a lot of green on the board. There's still 2 Bloodthirsters which are causing a lot of mayhem. I suppose we've got turn 6 part 2 coming up shortly, which will have the Space Marines response. So really I can't see them losing from here, but who knows. Anyway, we'll wait and see what happens. Right, this is the end of turn 6, second half of turn 6, and it's the Space Marines' turn. And if you remember at the end of last turn, they really couldn't lose it from here, and that's pretty much what happened. So looking at the board, we had a couple of victories, or one major victory for the Force of Khorne, which was there was a large unit of Space Marines here, which was just carved up by this Bloodthirster here. It's no longer there. The Space Marines on top of the hill, including the las cannon unit, had fired and hit a tank that was just sitting just there, and was fired up and smashed to bits by the Centurions over there. Tech Marine strolled across the board. They couldn't really fire anything. Didn't need to, really. We had a combined group of Sons of Medusa, and the Iron Hands took out 2 Terminators, leaving 1 sitting there. Over this side, we had a Bloodthirster in combat with all this, Centurions, Dreadnoughts, Space Marines. The Bloodthirster took out 2 Centurions and a Space Marine before succumbing to all that close combat firepower. So overall, the Space Marines control the board, and that is basically it for Battle 10. So hope you've enjoyed another stop motion battle report. Stay tuned for next week, and we'll get into another one. Cheers. Bye.